Hey, this is David and welcome to the Cross Rifles. Today we're doing a Cerakote tutorial on distressed American flags. This project is a wedding present for a couple, so we're doing some engraving on the grips and slide of this Rock Island Armory 1911. But this video is really about the flag process, so we'll skip the hi Luke. We'll skip the laser beams and put that in another video. Here I'm just laying down a base coat of hidden white. I like to either start with hidden white or desert verde on my flag builds for the most part. We've got the gun dialed way back here. We're just getting all the nooks and crannies. There's a lot on a 1911. If you have any questions about basic spray techniques or anything, we have a video on Cerakote basics, and then an even more detailed video on Cerakote spray basics. So I know I'm skipping over it pretty fast here. That's not what this video is really about. If you want more detailed information, check those videos out. All right, here I'm misting in some mud brown. I got the gun dialed way back, and I'm laying some mud brown in that trigger well, in some nooks and crannies, and just going through and putting some shadows in that aren't going to be quite as dark as the graphite black, which we're going to go back with later, the very last step. Just got to kind of look at the overall picture and decide where you want some of this brown. So I'm kind of going for a parchment look on this hidden white using that mud brown. Then we're going to distress that out a little bit before we start stickering up. I know it's going to look a little funny when with the white with this mud brown on there, but you'll see in the finished product how it really does lend some shadows and give some more dimension other than just using black. I really like to distress my base coat on this with some brown. I think it really adds something to the finished product. And here's a good look at those after we got the brown on there. Now there was no tack time in the oven here. I'm just using 4/0 steel wool and removing some of this mud brown and putting some streaks in it, smearing it around a little bit before we tack it on the oven and start our sticker process. Yeah, I slowed this clip down so you get a good look at this frame before it goes into the oven for 15 minutes and we start stickering. Yeah, I'm just really looking for some shadows in those spots. Gonna hit the grips too. And here we start to sticker. So what I have here is just an offcut of vinyl that I cut to roughly flag dimensions. This just helps me envision the proportions of a flag. So I'm just getting a general idea of how big I want the union to be as opposed to the stripes. So I'm taking a measurement off my stars cut out up there, which is proportionally correct. So I have an idea of where I should start. This first piece of tape I put down is the dividing line between the union and the stripes. So as you're looking at it, the left side there is going to be the union. So that tape line is going to be where my blue stops. You see I'm tucking everything down in the corners nice and tight so I don't have any ghost lines. And then we'll just tape over the rest of the pistol with tape just to keep the blue off it. A 1911, they stick together pretty well, stay lined up pretty well, but on a Glock, that slide will move around on the frame. So you may need a piece of tape to hold it steady until you get that first piece of tape around the entire pistol slide and frame. And now it's time to start placing stars. So I'm pulling them off my stencil sheet. This first star is going to kind of determine where the rest of the stars go in this project because they're all relative to each other. Um, I guess the biggest thing here is don't get it too close to where your stripes are going to start. Take a look at a flag, and the stars are not right on top of the stripes. There's a space in between there. And then I'm also considering the orientation of the stars to the what I've picked as my vertical line on the flag. So I want to make sure that those stars are lined up and the orientation of the points makes sense. Now you can see this doesn't end up perfect, but it just needs to look good. And I put a star on the top and it didn't make sense, so I took it off and changed my mind and just moved stuff around until it looks good. The size of the stars, the orientation of the stars, and the proximity of the stars to each other and the rest of the flag are all at play here. So just consider all those things when you're placing your stars. Here we're applying our Patriot Blue. I'm just barely covering that hidden white. I don't want to build up lines around my stars. And this is the start of the striping process. So I take a little fine uh, torn edge off of one side of a roll of masking tape. I make it as long as I can possibly make it until it fails on me. And then I start tearing stripes out of there. I like these hand torn stripes. I like the texture they give and the variety that they give. That first stripe, again, just like the first stripe determines where everything else is going to go in this project. So think about that, and then just build your stripes so they make sense with the union. Another thing I try and do is I try and line those stripes up from the rear, from the sides, from the top, so everything looks good, not just one profile shot. I want the whole gun to look good from all angles. Here I'm just taking a nip out of that masking tape so it'll lay down in those corners. Then I can go in and apply another piece of torn tape to cover that stuff up. With every stripe I lay down, I'm making sure it's tucked tight in all those corners. I want good clean stripes, so I'll use a little dental pick or thumbnail or whatever works to get in there. And here I'm just adding the other side of those stripes. I'm putting the grips in place and continuing those stripes over the top of the grip. Um, I I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I like to do that sometimes to so the stripe goes underneath the grip. I think it's cool. I guess. Yeah, I'm a nerd. Here I'm gonna cut that grip off and then fill in any remaining spots on the stripes on the grip. Now we're gonna take a look at this from the top, bottom, sides, wherever, and decide where those stripe transitions are gonna be. I want my stripes to meet up, so I kind of compare to the stripes on the other side and have a spot where those stripes come together at the back or underneath or wherever that makes sense and looks good. So you just see me comparing side to side. And then wherever those stripes meet, where you have tape coming from both sides, you'll have to decide which one to tear and tweak that until it's to your liking. Again, the size of your stars, the size of your union, and the size of your stripes all have correct proportions or close to it. Um, so take those into consideration when you're laying your stripes out, because you want them to look natural. You want it to look like a flag. There's a certain amount of artistic liberty that comes with any Cerakote job. So you'll see my stripes here aren't perfect. They're not all exactly the same width or anything like that. But that's not really what I was going for here. But I do want it to look like a flag. Here I am taping off that union so we don't get any red on there. Pay real close attention when you're taping that off. You don't want a bunch of overlap in either direction. You don't want the red to overlap the blue or the blue to overlap the red, because you'll see that we're just barely covering this white just like we did with the blue. We don't want any big thick lines or anything, so there's not enough red there to cover that blue up, or vice versa. So after 15 minutes in the oven, we pulled all the masking off there, and that's what we're left with before we do our final black distress coat over there. You can see how that brown really lends some shadows to the project. Here we got the gun dialed way back, almost like an airbrush. I'm being real selective where I lay much Cerakote here. This graphite black is going to provide shadows, so I'm looking for cracks, crevices, the transition from the slide to the frame, where the grips are going to meet. I'm not trying to cover up all that brown here. Leave some of that brown poke through, because it's going to matter in the end. But I do want some dark shadows on this, so I'm picking those spots and laying that down now. Now we have a much wider fan setting on the gun, and I'm just doing a quick mist over the whole thing, and then we're going to take that off right here with some steel wool. Now this was tacked out in the oven for about 13 minutes, and the grips were tacked out in the oven for about 12 minutes until they're just a little bit tacky. Then I pull them out, let them cool down for a little bit, and then start my distress with 4/0 steel wool. We're not using any acetone here. That doesn't mean you can't. The layout process is the same, whatever. This is just the final look I'm going for. So yeah, no acetone, just steel wool. I like to put the grips on there, distress everything all together all at the same time if I can, because then I can see what the finished product looks like. If it's a project that I have to separate, I leave all the parts visible so I can constantly check them against each other, see how they look against each other, with each other, hold them up next to each other in different lights, and just try and dial in that final distress so it looks good between the parts. And here's some finished shots of that project. If you got something out of this video and you think we earned it, I'd like to ask you for a subscription. Hit that like button. Help us grow the channel. I also encourage you to get involved in the comments below or on the groups in Facebook. We've got some real good ideas out of those groups, and we have some more content coming from some questions that were asked there or some suggestions. So hit us up. Keep an eye out for our next video. Thanks.